Hey guys, we're going to put this video on our How to Do Stuff in Japan playlist as part of our mini-series on raising kids in Japan. Bit of a heads up for parents who might be living in Japan in the future. But also it might be of general interest to some other people, maybe particularly people who saw the recent video that we made talking about how the new Japanese government have said that they're really keen to digitalise all the bureaucratic systems in Japan. And they've talked to the prefectural governments and the municipal governments, and they're encouraging them to digitalise. So they do genuinely seem keen to do it. So we made a video about that very recently. And then today's mission impossible was to register a small child, a very, very small child, to go to kindergarten. So enroll a very small child into the local kindergarten, which is the same one that previously another very small child went to from the same family. So it should be a fairly simple process, shouldn't it? There was just pages and pages and pages of paperwork, okay? So a page for each parent, and they wanted to know absolutely everything about us. Now, we already did this, okay? We already did this 5 years ago for the other child, but had to do it again for this child. But it was just really that the video that we made recently talking about the digitalizing things was really fresh. So as we're doing all this paperwork, I was like, yeah. So a page for each parent wanting to know absolutely everything. So starting with the My number, which is like the social security number or tax file number, and then absolutely everything about each of us. So our jobs, our income, our all our personal details that you could possibly imagine. And then we had to actually hunko everything with the stamp, right? Including a section that said we give the kindergarten permission to check with the city office, with City Hall, about the status of our tax situation. So in other words, whether we've paid our tax bill, and our income, check with the tax office about our income, and a whole heap of other stuff. And we had to hunko to say that we agreed to allow them to do all that if they wanted to do that. A kindergarten, keep in mind. Right. Keep in mind, this is just a city kindergarten. It's not university or anything. It's just a kindergarten, right? And then all our bank details. Wanted all our bank details, and access to our bank information. So we had to hunko that too. They're allowed to request information about our bank accounts. And that was so that was all for each parent. And then there was 2 or 3 pages for the child, right, who hasn't had a very long life so far. So it's pretty amazing how much information they wanted to know. They wanted to know all the usual things you'd expect, and then plus, what does the kid like to do? Which those sorts of questions we sort of respect that. They're good questions to ask. But there was a lot of them. What does the kid like to do? What does the kid not like to do? What are our concerns? What do we think is we should be careful about, or they should be careful about? Just a whole heap of weird stuff, right? And then grandparents' information. They wanted all the grandparents' details, including the grandparent that's in Australia, which we're not talking about next of kin situation or something, because there's like 5 people in Japan who are next of kin before we get to the Australian grandparent, but wanted all the details about all the grandparents, and quite thorough, all the information about all the grandparents. A map. So of course we have our home address on these forms, on each of the forms, in fact, our home address. But on one form there's a space of about half an A4 page for us to draw a map of where our house is. And some of you might remember this before. Quite often on police documents, if you register a car, not a K car incidentally, by the way, the small yellow plate car, you can see a small one ahead of us there with the yellow number plate. Those ones you don't have to do it, but the other ones with the white number plate, you have to do it. Every car in Japan has a piece of paper in the police station that has a map on it, hand-drawn map, drawn by the owner of the car, that shows where the car will be parked. And before you have permission to actually park the car there, the police have to actually go to that place and check that it's a legitimate, legal place to park the car. Every car, every vehicle in Japan has a piece of paper like that. And if you move house, you have to do a new one. So just imagine how much paper, right? So the same for the kindy. Same for the kindergarten. They have our address, but they want us to do a hand-drawn map in relative to the kindergarten where our house is. So we have to draw a map, and okay, here's the kindy, and here's that shop that you will know, and that shop that you'll know, because that's usually the way we talk about addresses. We did a video about this like 10 years ago, talking about the Japanese address system. You know, you can't go to a street and go, here's the street, and then go down the street and find the street number. It doesn't work like that, right? So I have to have this piece of paper and draw on it where the house is. Here's the house, and here's that shop that you know, and here's the kindy that you know. So yeah, it just as I'm doing all this, as we're doing all this, that talk about the digitalizing kept coming to mind. You know, how are they going to do this? You know, and again, the hunko, boom, boom, every piece of paper had to have hunko on it, mother and father, gung, 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 hunko's all over it, you know. And of course, it could be done, couldn't it? They'd use some sort of Google Map system to mark where our house is, which would actually be a very effective, useful thing in Japan, to have a digital map where you can put your house, and so they know where your house is. For some strange reason, that's important, right? But yeah, it's just ironic. It's sort of not ironic. I mean, we fill out forms like this all the time, but it was just a timing thing, because we talked about this digital thing recently, and then here we are doing the pages and pages with all this superfluous stuff. I mean, a lot of the stuff on there is like, this isn't important to anyone. Why is this important? You know, all that personal stuff. As always with these sorts of forms, the other thing that comes to mind is how a lot of people, non-Japanese people, would react to forms like that, because it does often feel, when you're doing forms like that it's invasion of privacy. It's like, why is that their business? You know, why do they need to access my bank account? If some people would probably feel, if we pay our monthly, and because the fee for the kindergarten comes out of our bank accounts, right? So it's not like, you know, they need to know our credit history or anything, because the monthly fee for the kindergarten just comes out of our bank account anyway. So some people would feel like, well, if they've already got that, if we've already filled out that form, another form, to authorise the monthly payment to be taken from our bank account, if we've already filled out that form, why is all that other stuff relevant about our tax situation and our income situation, and, you know, our full income situation, what income we earn, which is pretty sad this year, by the way. They might feel sorry for us after they see that, but you know, all that stuff, some people would feel like, why is this their business? And we often have that with forms that need to be filled out for all sorts of stuff. It's like, why do they need to know that? You know, why do they need to know that? And you can imagine in some countries, if you gave someone a form like that, they just go, I'm not filling that out. That's none of your business. Or they'd complete the form and leave all that private stuff out. That truck came straight through a red light then. See that? We got a green, he's got a red. That was pretty red, dude. So yeah, a lot of countries, people would just refuse to fill out those parts of the form, wouldn't they? None of your business. Give you all my bank account details and my tax information and, you know, all that sort of stuff. But in Japan, it's a shogunai thing, right? If you did send that form back, take it back, without every part of it filled out, it'd be everything would grind to a halt. Nothing would go forward from there. So it's just the way it is. So yeah, that'd be, from this video, people are going to live in Japan in the future, taking away from this video, as always, you need a load of patience with dealing with these sorts of things, and just have to bite your tongue and just shogunai. You know, if you want your kid to go to that kindergarten, you have to complete that form in its entirety, because people aren't flexible. You know, when there's a system here, nobody's going to be flexible on it and go, oh, it's okay, your kid went here previously, your other kid did, so we don't have to worry about it. There's none of that. There's no sort of free thinking, exceptions made for anything. If you don't fill out the form, the kid doesn't go to the kindy. It's like that, right? So, and it's not just kindergarten, it's anything here. When they're giving you a form to fill out, if you don't do it, whatever it is that you're trying to do is not going to happen if you don't fill out the form in its entirety with all your personal details. So if, personally, it doesn't worry me more. I don't like all the faffing, all the ridiculous faffing. We're walking all around the house collecting this and that and the my number thing and the this, that and the other and all these bits and forms and papers and where's the bank account and where's that tax thing and where's the, finding all that and the faffing and the time. The amount of time wasted on stuff like that is sort of, for me, is more annoying. As far as my privacy, I don't really care. I don't really care about them knowing all that stuff, but no doubt some people would really object to it, and that'd be fair enough too. It's like, why is that? Most of that stuff on that form's not relevant. In Japan, quite often, those forms that we fill out, no one's even going to look at them, quite often. The relevant information is only a small percentage of it, and that's usually used, and probably the rest of it, nobody even looks at it. But because that's the form that they've always used, that's the form they always use, So, there it is, So yeah, if anyone's going to take anything away from it, it's probably, often with the how-to videos, it comes down to the same piece of advice or the same observation. A lot of patience is required, is usually what it comes down to. And a lot of shogunai. Shogunai, it can't be helped, shogunai, and that's what Japanese people say in a situation like this. And don't whine. If you have a Japanese partner, don't whine to them about these forms or complain about the forms or make a fuss about it, because they'll just say, shogunai, why are you making a fuss? It can't be helped, shogunai, And that's it's right, that's correct. That's correct, that's just the situation. You just have to accept it and jump through all the hoops. As with any of these sort of situations where you're trying to get something done, quite often there is a lot of unnecessary faffing, a lot of unnecessary stamping of pieces of paper that are also unnecessary. That's just a shogunai. It's just like, okay, if I want to achieve that, whatever it is I'm trying to achieve, I've got to do this first. It's just the way it is. And the giving up your privacy thing, it's funny because we made a video years ago about contradictions and paradoxes, and this is another example of that. Quite often in Japan, your privacy is really protected, like we've talked about before. The mosaicing people's faces on Facebook and in videos and on TV and things. They mosaic people's faces and they mosaic people's car number plates and they mosaic buildings and company names. And in some ways, you get this image or this illusion that Japan's really concerned with people's privacy. We've made videos before showing people crazy drivers and show people breaking the law and doing dangerous things on the road. And Japanese people have complained that we've invaded their privacy by showing it on YouTube. So they don't care that the person's risking a kid's life or risking other people's lives. They're more concerned that we're showing them on YouTube doing it. And they're more concerned about their invasion of privacy rather than the fact that they're actually risking lives and breaking the law. And that's not surprising. That's often the case. So on one hand, you've got that. You've got this sort of a paranoia about privacy, and then on the other hand, it's quite often the case that you've got to give people all your private information. I mean, all of it. There wasn't much left on that form that we didn't have to put down. It was all pretty well everything about us to people that it's not relevant to. If we're paying our monthly fee to the kindergarten, all that other stuff's not relevant, is it? All that tax and income and bank accounts and all that stuff's not relevant to them if we're paying our bill. Why is all that relevant to them? It's none of their business. But we got to fill it out. So, and that's often the case. There's been lots of examples of that. There are lots of examples of that every year where we're filling out different forms for different things. And so why do they need that? That's none of their business. Why do they need that? And then fill it out. And okay, shogunai, fill it out. So anyway, there it is. Hopefully that's of interest to some people. Some people watch these videos and go, oh, I'm coming to Japan in the future. That's good to know. And occasionally we'll get someone who says, I couldn't live there. they listen to these things and think and say, I couldn't live there. And that's, you know, if occasionally someone listens to our videos and comes away with that conclusion, then that's probably a good thing too, because it's much better to know these things before you come here and decide you don't want to live like that, rather than come here and then find out, which is surprisingly high percentage. I can't remember what the number was, but really, really high percentage of people who come here with the intention of staying here for a year or more, who leave and go home within a year because of lots of reasons. But some of these are some of those reasons, you know, just the stuff like that drives people nuts. And when you talk to people who've given up on Japan and gone home for one reason or another, quite often, you know, they'll mention things like this, you know, bureaucracy and faffing and, you know, people wanting you to tell them their life story to see and fill out a piece of paper. So anyway, there it was. Hopefully that's of some use to somebody. It's lunchtime now. I'm going to eat some ramen noodles. More videos coming soon.